That pretty much says what we're going to do. Right there. Less bending over. When you get older, you learn to work smart, not harder. And I fit into that category. This whole raised bed, pedestal bed, vertical thing started about 20 years ago. We have a big garden, flat dirt, about 12,000 square foot in organics. And we raise probably 80 to 90% of everything we eat. And sometimes I get invited to speak to different church groups. And I got invited to go to Hutch to talk to a bunch of seniors. So I went in there and I talked about the garden and took samples of plants and things that we had grown. And when we got to the question and answer, one lady said, well, that's okay for you because you can still bend and crawl around and all of that. And I said, well, yeah, I can. I'm blessed. But anyway, I went home and told Bob, and we talked about we'd had flat raised beds that were on ground level. And I said, no, we want something better. We want them raised up. We want the beds on pedestals. So somebody with a walker or a wheelchair could still garden. A lot of us, as we get older, things don't exactly move the way we'd like. And so I said, I talked to the seniors, and a lot of them came in with walkers or canes. Okay, so he built our first pedestal 4x4 raised beds. I got 3 of them to start with, and I loved it because I can sit in a lawn chair and plant it. I can sit in the lawn chair and weed it. And I don't have weeds in it, but I can pick things, and I can sit down, I can move around. And someone in a wheelchair, we have a friend that's a paraplegic, that you could push that wheelchair right up next to that raised bed, and he could garden and pick and do all kinds of things. All right. So that's what started it. And how long have we been doing those now? Yeah, close to 20 years. Anyway, I've aged slightly, and I'll be 85 in June. Now, I can still crawl around if I want to. But like I said to start with, when you get older, you work smarter, not harder. Everybody hear that loud? Because you're all going to get as old as me sooner or later if you live long enough. Okay. So we now have 15 raised beds, and I manage those. Bob builds them, and he puts the dirt in them. We have a mixture of things that go into them, and we'll talk about that. But then I get to do it. I raise seeds in the basement in the winter, starting in February under grow lights. And then they go from there to our little hoop house greenhouse. Then they go into these pedestal beds. And with 15 of them, we have more than enough food for our family and some to give away. Now, we still have the big flat garden, and we do that. That's kind of icing on our cake. Okay, that's what started it. And I've been able to talk to nursing homes, people that need that kind of thing. And for me, it's just fun. It beats the system. I can work all day out there, and if I get tired, I'll sit down. Okay, you get the picture. All righty, we're going to talk. We're going to play a team here, a tag team. We'll be passing a microphone back and forth. Each of us has our own specialty of what we do. All righty, you're on.
All right, so today we're going to be talking about not bending over so much. We're going to be looking at things that are easy to take care of, and then we're going to be talking about nutrient-dense foods or high-brix foods. But before we start, I want to give you the pep talk. Does anybody know what this is? Peanut butter. This is pretty ordinary peanut butter. It's not the good peanut butter like Dan and Becky sells. This is the stuff you buy at Walmart. Pre-COVID, $5. $5. This is the stuff that Walmart sells right now. This one was 26 ounces. This one is 16 ounces. This is $7. Just 4 years ago, this is $5. If you want to buy the same jar of peanut butter today, it's $10. So in 4 years, this has doubled in price. Guess what's going to happen to your food prices this year? Look what's happened to gold in the last 6 months. Before Mr. Biden stepped into office, gold was selling about $1,350 or $1,400 an ounce. In the last 3 or 4 months, it's gone up almost 20%. Those increases in gold, those are coming to your food prices. So I would encourage you, plant a garden. Have an alternative, a plan B. All right, let's move on to the first slide, Teresa. So basically, when we're talking about gardening, there's 2 classifications of plants that we want to consider. One is called determinate, and the other one's called indeterminate. Well, most of us probably don't know those scientific words. We just say, hey, that's a bush bean, or that's a bush tomato, or we say, hey, that's a pole one. So if you're going to, say, plant in a container, you're probably going to want to use a bush one. If you're going to plant along a fence, or you have a good support system, you probably want to use a pole one. And that's the 2 styles that we want to look at right now. You want to talk? All right. So let's advance the slide there. One click. Here's the great-grandson. He's doing container planting. Now, the nice things about containers is it doesn't make any difference if you have good soil or bad soil. If you live in an apartment, you rent, you don't rent, you have your house, you don't have your house, you can container garden just about anywhere. And you can stack them up like they're doing here. That's an option. Just one suggestion on the container gardening: if you take a 5-gallon bucket and fill it full of dirt, it's going to be really heavy. So you're going to probably want to put some sort of mixture of peat moss or vermiculite in with that. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. So there's your grandkids.
I got some plants out. These are 3 things that I grow in my boxes. On my vertical boxes, he put cattle panels to grow up, to grow vertically. So on the ends of the boxes, you'll see some pictures, but these are plants that'll be growing up. If you can do that, you get more produce for the amount of space you have. So I've got a couple of kinds of peppers here. They grow up. Their cucumbers grow up, tomatoes, the little cherry tomatoes, even big tomatoes, summer squash, anything you can get that'll grow up, you can fasten it on that panel, and then when you want to pick, you do one of these. No bending, no stooping, you can reach everything. It works really, really well. And obviously, if you plant beans, snap beans, if you can get them going up instead of spreading all over the place, it'll make your life a whole lot easier. Okay? Peas, beans.
So if you teach your grandkids how to plant a garden, will they eat the veggies?
Oh yeah, yeah. If kids don't like veggies, get them started with a 4x4 of their very own, and let them pick out what they like and plant it, watch it, water it, then let them pick it, and let them taste it. They'll love veggies. Guarantee it. Guarantee it.
All right, Teresa, one more. So there's an example of our garden space. It's a little bit hard to see in this particular picture, but we try to grow up as much as possible. And we've had a lot of growing up devices over the years. We've had trellises, and we've had like bamboo poles and nylon nets and nylon this and plastic this and that. And you know what happens? The sun beats on it a couple years, they fall apart. What we really like are T-posts and cattle panels. You can get them fairly inexpensively. Our great-great-great-grandkids will still have them when we're gone. They will just last and last and last and last. So we make a lot of use of T-posts and cattle panels. So that's our strategy right there. We're going to do container or vertical to try and grow up. Next slide, please. There she is, the queen of the pedestal boxes.
Okay. For me, this is just fun. We eat really well, but for me, it's fun. It's entertainment. I got the idea for the square foot gardening from this book, and when I started out, this was my Bible. It was my go-to book. It's written by Mel Bartholomew, and he started the all-new square foot gardening, grow more in less space. He's a best-selling garden author. So if you're starting or even if you're advanced, good ideas in here. You want this book. You can look at I have 2 books I brought. That's the first one and probably the most important, particularly if you haven't done the verticals. And he got started by setting them up to take to the mission field for his church, where people had depleted the soil, and the soil was so bad they couldn't grow food anymore. Well, with a box, you can control the vitamins, the minerals that are in your soil. So the people that he was ministering to could actually grow their own and actually feed their neighbors and sell veggies. Anyway, the areas that he took this idea, it improved their economy just massively. So he's a good guy, and he's got a lot of good information.
All right. When you go to the nursery, like Stockman's or the Rustic Garden over Buffalo, maybe Otten's over there, do you ever notice that they put all their setouts on the ground? Do you ever notice that? No, they put them on a nice table about this height, right? Because it's easier to work on it when it's about this height, right? So if you want to be a pro gardener, you put stuff up where you can work on it. Makes sense, right? So we have all these boxes. Advance the next slide there, please, Teresa. There she is a couple days ago, planting. And so the square foot gardening technique is basically you divide your area up into 1 foot squares, and you can use the book as a guide, or you can go to their website, the Square Foot Garden Foundation, and they'll say, hey, you know, in this square plant 5 radishes or 6 onions or 1 cabbage, that type of thing. It kind of gives you a guideline for starting out if you haven't done it before. And the more and more you work with it, the more you realize that you can have 2 or 3 crops going off in the same season.
Right. Things like lettuce, kale, greens of different kinds, green onions, you can get more than 1 planting out of the same area. So you pick a thing and you plant it again. You pick something and you plant it right back in there. And it's usually 3 up here. It's 3 different rotations of food. Oh, let's see. I had something I was going to say and I totally forgot what it was. Oh, this picture. I had a friend I was playing, and I was sowing in radishes and some onion sets, and I was sitting down doing it because I was tired. And then my friend said, hey, can you plant? Isn't your soil your garden soil too cold. The soil hasn't warmed up enough yet to germinate and to get it going. On each of the gardens, each of my square foot boxes, we keep a layer during the winter time of black plastic. Okay, it's a fabric. It's a nursery fabric. The rain gets through, the snow gets through, but what happens, since it is black, it draws the heat in and it warms the soil in that box faster than if it was bare soil laying there. Okay, did I explain that right? Sure. Okay, so as a result of that, I can plant things earlier. I can get seeds in earlier in the boxes than I could in a main garden that is just raw dirt. Okay, that makes me happy, because I like to be the first tomato in the neighborhood. I do. I have a girlfriend, and she said, well, have you picked anything yet? I said, oh, yeah, I got a couple tomatoes. We had them for lunch. They were delicious. We have this kind of friendly thing going. Yeah, it is.
So how many of you love weeds? Weeds. Do you love weeds? Yes. We love weeds too. In fact, we have one of our boxes devoted to nothing but purslane and lamb's quarters, which we pick daily and put in our salads because we're too lazy to bend over all the way to the ground and pick them up.
I can forage for the weeds, what the people call weeds, but they're really food. I could go back in the pasture and forage for all that. And I said, So I have one box that's got purslane. What else?
Lamb's quarter,
And lamb's quarters.
dandelions.
And they're so cool. Oh, we do dandelions too. And we take the leaves and I keep trimming them back. And that's the start for every salad we eat every day. It works. And what's really fun is when I have some of my city friends come visit, and they come to our house and come and eat weeds. This is my specialty is dandelion fritters. Mm-hmm. When the dandelions are all over the place, we let them. We don't mow them. We let them grow for a while. And if you take the yellow top off of it, bring it in, roll it in some kind of a real loose fritter or pancake batter, and you stir fry them in coconut oil, and then you put them on a plate and you pour maple syrup on it. Delicious. But you should see the expressions on the face when I bring this platter of dandelion fritters out for my city people. This is...
So you see the chair that Sarah's sitting on, right? You can plant sitting in a chair. You can weed sitting in a chair. You can water sitting in a chair. And you can harvest sitting in a chair. Now, doesn't that sound like the good life? Wouldn't that make you happy? Wouldn't your knees and your lower back just say, thank you, Jesus? I could say that we're in church. Thank you, Jesus.
Where are we now? Could we have the next one, please? I can't see it.
Okay. So, like I said before, we love T-posts. T-posts just last forever and ever and ever. And it used to be you could get them like 5.5 foot, I think was less than $5, and you can get them all the way up to almost 8 foot tall. They last and last and last and last. They're a little bit more expensive nowadays, but they do work extremely well. They don't deteriorate in the sun. They're just marvelous little inventions. If you're going to get some T-posts, I would get a T-post driver, like the one in the middle. This is a great tool to get your teenagers out there saying, hey, you don't have to go to the gym today if you could just pound in those 20 T-posts for me. Last summer we had somebody come over. He was a concrete worker. He pounded in 60 T-posts in 45 minutes. He was amazing to watch. My favorite person. And then to get the T-posts out of the ground, There's a T-post jack, they call it. But between the driver and the jack, it would probably cost you $100. I'd say it's a good investment. You could probably find them at a garage sale or maybe an auction, farm auction, that type of thing. Or you can, somebody's going out of farming, you could get the T-posts. They just last forever and ever and ever. So we use them to hold up cattle panels. We love cattle panels. Again, they don't deteriorate. They don't go away. You can stick them up straight. You can make a hoop out of them. You can have stuff growing on them. It works really, really well. You can cut them up into pieces. They're really, really nice. You can buy double-ended clips, and you can clip them together. In case your grandkids get really rambunctious, you can just clip your cattle panels together, stick them in there. Okay, the new puppy. Stick the new puppy in there.
That's better. On the T-post, one of my favorite things is I want to keep it simple, I want to keep it easy, and once I put a plant in the ground, I don't want to mess with it until I pick it. I don't want to weed, no. I don't want to prune things, I just get it in the ground and then do what you're supposed to do, plant, and I'll pick you. So with the tomatoes, we'll plant probably 75 to 100 tomato plants. And I'll put them in. Here goes the T-post, like here. Let me have my tomato plant. Okay. At the foot of the T-post, here goes the tomato plant. Okay. Stick that in there. It's coming. I haven't gotten there yet. And then we put a tomato cage on top of that, because these are the indeterminate tomatoes, so they'll grow up through that cage, and I'll pull the branches out, and they'll grow up that T-post. And my tomatoes will be like so, which makes picking really, really, really easy. I also have a row of the same kind of posts and cattle panels that I'm growing beans, red beans, black beans, white beans, lots of beans. Every 3 inches, 3 seeds in the ground. I plant them. I don't do a thing to them. I don't weed them. I don't mess with it. I plant them. They'll grow up that thing, and I'll let them dry on that post, on that cattle panel. Okay? It's keep it simple. And when they get dry, then they'll get picked and spread out and dried and all that. If I can keep things easy and small enough that I can handle it, so much the better. I don't want to work harder. I want to work smarter. Okay? All right.
All right, next slide, please. There's an example of the T-post holding up cattle panels, and we have 3 of them. So that's 48 feet worth of beans and cucumbers and whatever else is growing. And like the beans, we don't even pick the beans. We just let them dry out on the cattle panel, and then you have somebody pick them for you, and then you throw all the beans in a pillowcase, run a rolling pin over the top of them a couple times, and then dump all the beans out and throw all the rest of it away.
You don't have to shell beans one at a time. You don't have to do that. I read this thing. Occasionally you get something really bright on Facebook. They have some good ideas. Some of them are crazy, but I got one, and they said, take your dried beans, the shell, put them in a pillowcase, take a rolling pin, and roll them out. Okay? So I thought, well, I'll try it. And it is so easy because the beans are there, and then the chaff, the thing, the little hull, you just kind of, and it blows off. So it isn't this one at a time shell the bean. I used to have bean shelling parties and invite people to come to my bean parties. Yeah, it works. You get your friends to come over and help you. Smart. Everybody read Tom Sawyer? Yes. So, but with the rolling pin, I can get them out, and I can shell a lot of beans, and we grow a lot. Good protein, and they last forever. And I save seeds. We raise all heirloom seeds, all organic, so we can save our seeds from product to product to product to year to year to year to year. Okay? This really works. So I'll have to apologize for my attitude toward Facebook of some of their crazy ideas. Some of them really work.
So this is a portion of our garden. Our garden is about 10 to 12,000 square feet. There's 2 of us. It's enough food to feed about 20 people or so. But we have a strategy. Here's our strategy. Hey, Heather, how'd you like some organic potatoes? Okay, just come on over and dig a few up and you can have half of them. Grapes and apples. It works so great. We love our neighbors.
Teenage boys, so that's nice too. They've got more muscles to dig potatoes and stuff than I do, and one of them goes up in a tree. Heather goes up in a tree too. But it's really a good, if we can trade produce for labor, we do. And we were so happy to see all your children come in, because we have had you on our radar for a while. We have one family now, we're on the 4th son. They had 4 boys. They've all worked for us, and it lasts for a couple of years until they get their driver's license and a real job. And then, you know, they go on. But fortunately, they had 4, and we're on number 4 now. So he's good probably for another year, year and a half. But your eldest son there, you have been staked out. Yes. Go.
All right, so that's a strategy. Learn to do what you like to do and then do it efficiently. And if you can do it efficiently enough, you make it easy to take care of, then it's easy to get help. Like in this, almost every Memorial Day, we plant tomatoes and peppers. It's like an annual tradition at our house. It's amazing the number of people that we've had through the years just want to come over to our house and help us plant peppers and tomatoes. They volunteer. And it's like, bless you, brother. Bless you, sister. We enjoy you being here. We feed them a little bit, you know, come back at harvest time. But you get a lot more work done that way, right? You get some other people to help you out. All right. In the big garden, too, we also use raised beds. A little hard to see there. Use black plastic as mulch, and we put down usually carpet strips between the rows. And every couple of years, we swap out the carpet. All right, next slide. Here's your trellises.
My trellises?
Yes.
I already talked about it. There's my plants.
Okay. So, all right. Here's a trellis design that we just, again, use cattle panels and some cheap conduit there. You can get that stuff at Menards fairly inexpensively. I think most of our boxes have the trellises on it. 15 of the boxes, and 12 of them have trellises. And so that gives us a vertical growing area, as well as the more of the container style on at the
About the soil.
yes, okay, so let's go to the next page. So another strategy for us is to have great tasting, healthy food. Okay. We had met a friend many years ago that is a soil scientist, and his passion was to study soil and how the nutrients in the soil get into the plants. Our main garden is more or less well treated with compost and various additives like these.
Eggs. This is show and tell. I save eggs from our ducks and our chickens. We grind this up and we'll mix that in with the plants. They like the calcium, potassium, magnesium. And normally you just throw the stuff away, but ours goes right into the garden, into the soil.
So one of the strategies that our soil scientist friend recommended was, well, why don't you use a feedback system on your soil to tell when you're making improvements, and then make those improvements and see what happens. And so that process is typically known as nutrient dense, or sometimes we call it high bricks. Basically what we'll do is we'll take a vegetable or a grass or a fruit, like say this pumpkin, we'll take the juice out of it, this is a refractometer. You put a few drops of the juice in it and you hold it up to the light and it'll give you a percentage. So if you're a machinist or if you like to make wine or beer, you might be familiar with this process. But as the sugars in a plant go up, so do the minerals go up with it. And the flavor goes up with it. The flavor goes up with it. So, for example, if you go to the grocery store and you get some carrots, and those carrots have a Brix reading of 6%, those carrots are going to be like, kind of cardboardy. But if you go to your high Brix garden, you get some nutrient-dense carrots, they might have a Brix reading of 10 or 12, and they're going to be like, pow, carrots. Those are really good. You haven't tasted a cucumber until you've tasted a high Brix cucumber. It's just, or a high Brix cabbage. It's just so much tastier than normal grocery store food. Even organic food doesn't necessarily mean that it is a nutrient-dense food. So again, the process is you take the juice from the vegetable, the grass, the corn stalk, the fruit, whatever, you put it in, this is an analog one, but they also have digital ones, and then you can compare it to a chart. We have some handouts here if you'd like to have some. So for example, if you had some cured garlic, a good average garlic would have a Brix reading of 32%. Our garlic has a Brix reading of 45%. We have medicinal grade garlic at our house. And you can see different veggies here. You can pick these up a little bit later. If you wanted to make some improvements to your soil, you could also get a soil test. So here's, say, a soil test order form from a website called fixmysoil.com, friends of ours. You can send in a soil sample, they'll analyze it, they'll say, well, you're a little short on magnesium, you're a little short on copper, you need some more calcium, potassium, and they'll make up a bag of amendments, and then you spread that on your soil. And so then next time you run your soil test or your Brix test, you can see the improvements in your vegetables. Also, as you increase the sugar content of your veggies, they last longer. This is last year's pumpkin. If you've saved pumpkins or squashes before, usually by November, December, January, you're pitching them out because they're covered with mold, right? Or they go soft. This one is just thinking about going soft, but he's still there. So if we measured the Brix content on this one and we found pumpkins, it would probably say it's in the 9 or 10% range. We had our friend out to our house to look at our high Brix or our soil quality in our pedestal gardens, because we were using the recipe that we got from our square foot gardening book. And the recipe is 1 part compost, 1 part peat moss, and 1 part vermiculite. And we noticed it didn't taste as well as the stuff from the regular garden. And so he did the soil test and he goes, yeah, your minerals are all off. Here's what you do to fix it. Go ahead. We did the soil test one more time. We added 1 part of soil. So just adding the part soil to the 1 part vermiculite, the 1 part peat moss, and the 1 part compost gave us that same great flavor in the boxes that we got in the garden. And you can do the same thing with containers. You cannot put just straight soil in these boxes because they'd be so heavy they'd fall apart in a few months. So you have to put a mixture of a lighter weight stuff in there. So how do your veggies taste from your boxes? And how close are they to your back door?
Oh, all my boxes are right out the back door. So I go from my kitchen through the hallway, out the back door, and here are the boxes. So if I have several boxes that are, they're herb gardens. I have all my herbs together. So when I want a salad, I go clip, 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 and I've hit the basil and the oregano and the thyme and all the rest of the herbs that are in those couple of boxes. And 4 or 5 steps out the back door. So it makes it easier if I don't have to go very far to get what I want. Then we have 3 boxes that I call my salad bowls, and I have all the stuff for fresh salads in those. The kales, the lettuces, the spinach, the chard, the mustard greens, all those in 1 box. We plant a lot of things. I have flowers all over, and every box has flowers in it, and every box will have some form of marigold in it. And that's another goodie I got off of Facebook. It said, if you want to keep mosquitoes out of your yard and off of you, plant a lot of marigolds. Well, I didn't believe it because I war against mosquitoes. I dislike them, and I dislike the spray. Okay, but I thought, well, I'll try it. So I planted marigolds in each box. I planted also a bunch in the big garden, marigolds. I didn't have 1 mosquito bite last summer. Not 1. No mosquitoes in my backyard. Marigolds, they don't like the smell. And this really works. It sounds crazy, but this year I'll probably plant hundreds of marigolds simply because I'd rather look at flowers than swat mosquitoes. You can learn things, and some of it sounds kind of nuts, but a lot of things work, and I'm having fun with it. I'm not going to mess with the brick stuff. This is Bob's thing. He's the resident scientist, engineer, builder. He'll do into that. I just have fun with it, okay? That's what I do, and I cook. I have to cook the stuff. I pick the stuff. We process it. We eat it. One of the things I do want to mention is another really good book I've got. This is called Carrots Love Tomatoes, and it's about companion planting. And you know, there are people in your lives. Everybody has people that just getting around those people makes you feel good. You know, you just feel good. And then there are other people you get around and you kind of droop. Yeah. So the plants are the same way. Some plants make the one next to them grow bigger and better and have better flavor. Now, where is it? Here it is. I've planted hundreds of basil seeds this year. These are lettuce leaf basils, but I have several different kinds. And basils are a companion plant with tomatoes and with peppers. So what I'll do is when I plant, I'll put a pepper and a basil and another pepper and another basil and another tomato and another basil all the way through. And what happens with this, the tomatoes are more flavorful, they're healthier, the plants are stronger. They really, really like basil. So if you can plant basils with your nightshades, your tomatoes, your eggplant, your peppers, plant your basils in with it. Don't put them off separately. Put them in right with it. You'll see a difference in flavor and health of your plants. And I know this because I've done it for years. Okay? Basils, tomatoes, peppers. You can see a difference. It's called companion. No, it's called, yeah, companion planting. This is Carrots Love Tomatoes, a Garden Way publishing book, Secrets of Companion Planting for Successful Gardening. So there's all kinds of things. What herbs make things grow better? What plants will cause certain other plants to wilt? It's worth it to find out. Because if you're putting things next to each other that are going to deplete from each other, you're not going to get the flavor, the health of the plant you want. Very important, companion planting. And I'm learning. I don't have it all down yet, but I'm learning how to do that. And it's very effective, what I have done so far.
All right, Teresa, next slide, please. Here's the bottom line. Let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. It all starts with the fuel you put in your gas tank, right? You put in lousy gas, pretty soon that engine is going to need an overhaul, right? You put in good stuff, your health is going to last. You're going to live for a long time, right, Sarah?
My birthday is in June,
85 in June. She's still doing her thing. So again, if you can get those nutrients in the soil to be available to the plant and get them into the plant, when you eat that plant, you're going to get more nutrients, more minerals, more vitamins. You won't have to eat as much food because it's all there. It's not like eating a few potato chips and then eating the whole bag because there's nothing there that's nutritious, right? You just want to keep going because it's there. If you get a potato that has a good flavor, has a lot of nutrients in it, that's going to fill you up a lot faster than empty calories. Let's do the next slide. Again, here's an example of the refractometer, and then also there's a digital version. So you could actually get these on Amazon. I think the analog one is around $60, and the digital one's probably $150. It's also known as Hybrix, and as the bricks goes up, the taste and the nutritional value go up as well. Next slide, please. And there's the chart. Next slide. Talk about plant feeding. Go ahead.
And I'll come back to that. What I wanted to show you, and hopefully you'll come up and visit my plants. These are grown from seeds in the basement and under the grow lights. He built the grow lights, and we start planting in February, and we probably have about 3,000 plants now in our basement. And this is a wild lettuce. It's a garden mix of different kinds of wild lettuces. And I've been cutting salads off of these, taking them upstairs and having them for lunch for about the last month. I'm growing salads in the basement, which really beats the system. Do you ever price organic greens? I mean, goodness sakes. Anyway, come look at my little lettuces here. But I've been getting lettuce, I've been getting kale, mustard greens, collard greens, spinach, and then the parsleys, the oreganos, the herbs that I add to those salads. So it really, that's lunch every day. It's go down the basement and, yeah. That's all.
Like I said before, you can use a feedback system to determine if your plants are getting better or, things aren't helping. You can also do the soil analysis. Again, I would recommend fixmysoil.com. And we happen to have some great manure producers, some sheep. Wonderful source of nutrients that we can put on our garden. And then we also make, for use throughout the summer, we have a compost tea. Well,
we used to raise rabbits, and we raised them to make more rabbits, because that's what they do. And we caught the rabbit droppings underneath. And so here's the hutch, and it's all dropped down into here. And rabbit manure is a really good thing because it doesn't burn the plant out. It isn't high enough to burn your plant. So you can mix that right in with your stuff right away. And I got the bright idea of making rabbit tea, rabbit compost tea. So I'd get a bucket, fill it about a third to a half full of bunny poop, and then fill it up with water, and then stir it up and let it bubble and do that for about a week. And then I'd water my plants with that. I have the happiest plants in the world, and it doesn't smell bad. You go and visit, you wouldn't want to do that with cow stuff. At least I wouldn't. But the bunny stuff works, and the sheep stuff works. And I've actually, when we were selling rabbits, I actually sold some rabbits to people that wanted to make their own bunny poop tea. It works. It really does work. So, anyway.
So sheep manure makes a wonderful amendment to your garden if that's something you need to do to build up your soil. If you'd like to get like a trailer full or a pickup truck full of it, you can call us. All you have to do is just pick it up off the ground. It's free. We don't charge for it, and the people that have done it in the past have really said that's some great, really improved our garden a lot. And it cleans out our sheep pen. All right. Another thing you can do is you can let your soil rest every 7 to 8 years. That's kind of biblical. And then we use a lot of this primal plant food, and you can also get that from fixmysoil.com. So that is a product. We've actually been a test site for this particular product, so we've used that a lot. It may seem a little bit expensive, but again, $7. As far as some other things that we've tried in the past, we've tried different kinds of vertical gardening kind of stuff. We've done upside down plants. We've done straw bale plants. We've done hydroponic plants. We've done all kinds of stuff. And after 30 years of doing it out here in beautiful Cokato, this is the stuff that works year after year after year without too much effort. All the rest of the stuff was either high maintenance or it lasted a couple years and then it fell apart. If you want to read a book that is just kind of an inspiring book to read, and this is a guy is a farmer. This is called Dirt to Soil by Gabe Brown. Great book to read. I've read it twice. He's just a guy who thinks outside the box. He's just an outside the box thinker, and he goes against all the conventional farming practices, and then he creates an empire, and then he creates jobs for people. And it's just kind of a motivational, kind of inspirational book to read. All right.
Okay, before we get done here, and we're about done, I want to recommend some things that we use that work for us. I am not employed by this company. I'm not. But I love Baker's Creek Heirloom Seed. Baker's Creek Heirloom Seeds. They're in Mansfield, Missouri. Go up online. They have a really good catalog, and they can even mail you with pictures and how-tos. All the plants. If I save seeds from year to year from my own plants, but when I buy seeds, I always buy stuff from Baker's Creek. Okay, so far this year, everything in this little box has already been planted. It's growing in my basement. So take a look at all the different kinds of things you can grow. A lot of food in a square foot box, 4 by 4. And these are the seeds to get. If you don't know what kind, they're heirloom, they're all organic. And I've never had a bad germination, never. I get germination right now. And I don't mean 50 or 60%. I mean 98 to 100% germination on their seeds. So I usually try to do a commercial for them because they've got a good thing. And if somebody's got a good thing and it's working for them, those people I listen to. That's how I learn. Okay.
So if you'd like to try to do a pedestal garden, here's the plans for the 4-foot square boxes. You can go down to Menards for about $100, $110, and you can build 2 boxes. If you're a little bit handy, you can do it. I know there's some handy people here. If you scrounge a little bit, it's going to be less expensive. You know, we don't have a bass boat. We don't have a cabin on the lake. We just have these boxes in the backyard that makes the queen happy, right? Her name's Sarah. That means princess. She's grown up to be the queen, right? So I think that's the last slide, right? Yes. Any questions for us? Yes. Do we have any trouble with the deer? No. We have, we live in the country, right? And as far as you can see, just about all the way around us is cornfields. And then we have these 3 really big dogs. Now, I'm not sure our neighbors really love the dogs, but they don't probably have any deer in their yard either. But the dogs bark a bit at night. They just say, hey, we're here. Don't come mess with us. So we don't have any trouble with coyotes. If a raccoon happens to cross our property, it's usually a dead raccoon within 30 seconds or so. So we've gotten dead shrews, we've gotten dead raccoons, we've gotten dead possums in our yard, usually within a minute or 2 because of the big dogs, but no deer. One of the things you can do is if you do decide to build a pedestal, the 4x4 size is the most common size, and so you can get a lot of accessories. So you can get like a sprinkler that fits inside that 4x4, or you can get a canopy. You can use it like a greenhouse, or you can get a little tent, and that little tent would keep the deer out.
We raised we raised puppies for 20 years. They're Great Pyrenees. They're livestock guardians, but they guard our plants and things against deer. Okay. Great Pyrenees. If your family's looking for a good guard dog, highly recommend Great Pyrenees.
More questions? So the question is, how do you attach the plants that are growing up the panels? And it's basically a little bit of training.
Yarn. I have some bright red yarn, and I tie up the branches. I don't want to use wire because when the wind blows, it could cut them. So I went to Walmart and I got a couple of things of red. You can use baling twine too, but the yarn's easier for me to handle. So I've got the yarn tied up on my plants. It holds the branches. It's not going anywhere, and it doesn't cut my plants.
And so a lot of the pole varieties of plants, they'll have like these little fingers or tendrils that come out, and then if you usually wrap those around, and you get them trained. Somebody had a question over here? Yes, ma'am. Watering system, yes. So we are, in addition to being lazy gardeners, we're also lazy waterers.
Can I show them this first, please?
Oh, okay. Here's.
Let me show them this.
This is
No, I'm gonna.
this is high tech.
I don't like gadgets. I don't like computers. I've mastered a few. My husband's he's a genius, okay? He does everything. If he can work it on a computer, he makes it work. So he'll have a water system he'll tell you about. And I told him I needed another spray bottle to go over my 3,000 plants that are in the basement. And you water with a watering can, each one individually, which takes a while. And then I had a squirt bottle, where you do this motion with your finger. I said, just order me another bottle because I'm going to work 2 hands. It takes forever. No. He came home with this. It's on batteries. It's on computers. You can't believe this. I hate the gadgets. I don't like his gadgets. This I love because, look, I'm misting my plants. Now, is that hard or what? Okay, if you had 3,000 of them, you wouldn't laugh. You would go, yay. Thank you, Bob.
So I think this one is, this was at Menards. I think it's about $15. There's some rechargeable ones on Amazon for about $20. Another question? Oh, in the big system, yes. So we don't have a underground piping all the way out to the big garden, so we use hoses, you know. And then we use the little Nelson timers, and they'll go out to different parts of the garden. So it'll be on here for a while, it'll be on there for a while, it'll be on there for a while. And then another thing that we found out, you know, you can go to Menards or a hardware store, and you can buy these little Y adapters with the little tiny valves on them and stuff. And the first time you run over them with a lawnmower, they shatter to pieces. So do yourself a favor, go over to the plumbing department, buy all the little gadgets that you need, the elbows and the little nipples and the T's and all that other stuff, and build yourself this big chunky manifold. And that works really, really great. It'll last 100 years. You won't have to buy any of that stuff again. Just replace the timers from time to time. And then a couple years ago, we've experimented with some drip watering system. So we have some of those UBC tanks up on a pedestal. 4 of them, I think they'll hold about 1,000 gallons, the 4 of them. And we can either feed our well water through them, or we can use the water from those tanks stored in the tanks to go out through the garden. So that's very, very efficient. Nice thing about drip irrigation is you don't necessarily water the weeds. Okay, any other questions? We have the primary watering person right here, but I'm hearing that there's a new work order coming in for a automated pedestal box gardening watering system. That's what I heard. All right. Yes, ma'am. Question? It just, what's the ideal depth for the pedestal box? Mel Bartholomew recommends 6 inches, making it from 1x6s. We do use 1x12s. The reason is if you make it 1x6s and you put it on the ground, it stays cool. The water doesn't evaporate out. But if you raise it up in the air, it dries out really, really fast. The soil, if we use a 1x12, it's actually going to be 11.5 inches tall, and then it'll be about this much under the soil. So it'll be about 10 inches. So you could actually grow some potatoes.
Onions, you can grow root crops. I've done carrots, I've done potatoes, I've done onions. The root crops, they work well in there.
Yeah, the big thing is you don't have to water as much.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Well, it depends on how often the cats use it for a cat box. Well, we have, you know, we've done it for long enough that we kind of have an idea of how it works, but we just normally just add more compost every year.
When you pull your plant up and you're cleaning out the boxes, you always have a big clump of dirt that comes out. So in the fall, I'll put compost in and mix it in so that that box really never goes down. And I'll mix it with the rest of the soil and things, and eventually, you know, we just keep on going. We just keep adding. Yeah. Yeah. And the cats are a problem. And last summer we solved the problem. Again, my Facebook source. I saw this picture of somebody that had the square foot gardens, and they had put forks, plastic forks, about that far apart, framed all the way around those boxes. You know, okay, so the frame, and here you had the fork, and a fork, and a fork, and a fork, like a frame of forks. Keeps the cats out. It works. There, see? A satisfied customer with, yeah, it really works. Some of the crazy things, and it looked ridiculous. 15 boxes with forks all over the boxes, and folks had come over and, what are you doing now? Cats. It works.
So the question is, I can't raise houseplants.
Have you ever tried cactus? Try cactus. No, cactus. Cactus. The cactus plants.
Like an aloe
Yeah.
plant. You water it once a month.
Okay, once a month you water it a little bit. And cactus are wonderful. We're from Texas. We know about cactus. And I have cactus plants in the house. And some of them don't get hardly any sun because we don't have a lot of light coming in the windows. I can winter them. In the summertime, I take them out and they live in the garden with everybody else. In the winter, they come back in. And then succulents the same way. You could try those. Succulents, cactus. Yeah, and very little water, like once a month. Usually people can't do houseplants because they drown them.
Any more questions? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, the reason it's earlier for us, and I do this on purpose, I start planting and I'll grow the plants in the basement. And sometimes by the time I actually get them in the ground, the tomatoes will have blossoms on, and sometimes little tomatoes. They're already at that point by the time they go in the ground. And the reason I go that way is we miss a lot of the insects, the bugs. We miss the cabbage moth. We miss the squash bug. A lot of the blights that get on, is it blight that goes on the tomatoes? Yep. By the time we get blight, and we do occasionally, I've already got a full harvest. It doesn't bother me. Now, I do it early, and it's labor intensive for a while, but I'm already harvested a lot of my stuff. A lot of my veggies are already in the house processed by the time that blight or that bug comes along. So it kind of beats the system. You get there first. And then after you get what you need, it doesn't matter who comes, what comes.
So if you plant fairly large tomatoes like this, you don't have to protect them against cutworms. You don't have to put a little barrier around it. Any more questions? All right. Well, I'm excited to hear tonight we have a very special speaker who is the expert in this area on all kinds of health and nutrition and growing and chickens. I know he knows stuff about chickens, right? They know everything. Please help me welcome Mr. Dan Bravinder. Lovely wife Becky's here as well, too. There are some plans for the square foot boxes, pedestal boxes, if you want some.
Thank you, Bob and Sarah. I'm going to give them the abridged version here. Abridged. I guess why we're here tonight is to talk about a particular kind of garden bed, or it's a raised bed, but it's more along what we would call a hugelkultur technique. But it's not a hugelkultur because hugel is a German word. I can't even spell it. Hugelkuhr, I think it is. But it means mound garden. You can pass those out of them talking. And Becky's going to give you a handout here of how I built our raised beds. So if you could just take one per family. I don't think I have enough for everybody. Okay. She said, did you hear that? Teresa said she would post it on the website later too, if we don't have enough. So I'm not the gardener. The gardener's passing out these papers right now. I'm the one who says, who does, when she says I want something, that I don't always get it done, but I try to get it done. And so the whole technique of not wanting to bend over as you get older, we can identify with that. But it works for younger people too, by the way. So if you could put the first slide up, Teresa. So this is a picture of the 4 beds that we have built right now. I'm kind of a repurposer. I like to make use of all the old things that we have on the farm. It's corrugated tin, and a friend of mine had 100 sheets of this stuff that he tore off of his shed. And I said, so what would you like to get for those? He said, well, $100. I said, okay. I've been using this for how many years? I still have it in some in the pile out there, but I have found so many uses for that. And when I decided we were going to do this plan for the raised beds with the hugelkultur technique, hugelkultur basically is a technique I believe started in the early 1900s in Germany. A gardener that Becky followed quite a bit was Sepp Halser, and I think, was that in the 60s maybe, in Austria?
Yeah, he started as a kid, but he's just done a lot of unique things.
And so the way this started is that apparently in Germany it was illegal to burn brush at this time. And so somebody had tried to figure out what to do with all this old brush. And so they started using it in their hugelkultur techniques. They would put all this brush down and then start covering it with leaves and all kinds of yard waste that they would have, and then top it off with compost and soil. And what ended up happening is that by doing that, these plants were fed for up to 15 years without having to fertilize the soil, because it slowly would break down that wood and bark and compost underneath and continually feed your plants over that time period. So it's the way we built ours. If you look at the diagram that I handed out, if you look on the bottom of that page, I have a side view of the bed. These are 10 by 4 beds, by the way, 10 feet long by 4 feet wide. And you can look on the bottom there. My artwork isn't the best, but we try to put in where we put the branches, leaves, twigs. I've got some pieces of wood that are this big around that I stick in there. And I throw everything in there.
Ideally, they're already starting to rot, because if everything is green, the nitrogen is going to be pulled out of the soil above it. So you do want to have the air spaces, and underneath, I throw leaves and some compost down there too, but the worms are able to come up from the soil, and the air spaces help with the breakdown so it doesn't become anaerobic.
And okay, and as we build these, that first 12 to 15 inches is with this long-term composting material that's going to take a long time to break down. And she made a very good point that it needs to be dead wood. I mean, it does. That's going to make it really work well for you. And after we've put that in, we have a lot of compost on our farm. We have cows, we have chickens. We always, at minimum, that compost needs to be a year old at minimum. It has to break down. If you don't have that sitting out there for a year, so that a lot of, especially chicken manure, it's going to burn everything up. And our chicken manure is always mixed with wood chips, and that way it helps to, it gives it a organic material, and it breaks it down, but it also makes it so that it isn't quite so potent. It's the carbon that you add to it. And so we take that and I dump that in there, the compost, and it'll filter down through the tree or the branches and everything that's in there until we get up to about 6 inches from the top of the bed. And then a final covering over the top of that is with black dirt. Now, these beds here, we're going on our 3rd year, right? Is that correct? The 3rd year. And like Sarah said, they're right outside the back door. And it's, matter of fact, can you go back to there. The first one is a 4x4 bed, and that's actually fastened right onto the deck of where our back door is, where we walk out. The first year we put that in, she put in what was a sun gold cherry tomato. Now, when I go out in the morning to do my chores, take care of animals, I love to grab cherry tomatoes every morning. That's my appetite teaser before breakfast, I guess. And I tried to count how many we had off of that one plant, and I think it was close to 300 off that. Was it 1,000? Well, that's what I ate, was 300. And that was one sun gold cherry tomato plant. But the benefit of this type of gardening is that it's very low maintenance, because you're continually feeding those plants and not having to put soil amendments in all the time. Now, this year our beds are down probably about 6 inches, so we're going to have to add more compost on top, compost and black dirt, because over the winter it has settled down into the branches, as they decompose, so you add to the top. And it's been kind of a system that we started almost 3 years ago, and it seems to be working very well. I'm still have 2 more 10-foot beds that Becky wants me to build, so hopefully we'll get there this year. As far as the way that these are put together, if you can look on your diagrams, I'm a farmer. I'm not a engineer. So I try to use all the scrap that I have on the farm. And I had all kinds of old 4x4 posts, and so I use those on the corners. I cut them up and put them inside the tin, and that's how I fastened them to the corners. And the wood is 6 inches down below the top, so it's never going to be exposed. One thing about the wood, when you have it inside the soil like that, if you keep it continually covered, it's not going to be breaking down as fast because it doesn't have that oxygen hitting it. And so the wood is going to stay intact for a long time. And then on the 10-foot beds, I have to put a brace in the middle. And I put an X brace in there because that X brace allows you to have more depth in your soil. If you have a board right straight across it, it's going to be right under the soil, and you really don't want that. You want to have it nice and open in the middle. And you need that X brace on a 10-foot bed, because otherwise it'll just push the sides out when you start putting all that soil in there. Let's see. Other than that, I think that I didn't fasten anything to the ground. There's nothing into the ground at all. I just level the ground. I'm kind of funny about that. Things have to be level for me. So I made a level spot first before I put the beds in, and just set them right down on top of that level spot. And then as I filled it, when you get all that soil and compost in there, it's not going to move. It's not going anywhere. it stays nice and solid that way. So do you have anything you want to add now on the planting?
My mind doesn't work in square foot gardening. My mind works in curves, so this is actually kind of a challenge for me. But I have kind of plots, or I did use raised peas in a straight line, just like I would in the regular garden. But literally, you just stick things wherever you can, and I often put things closer than what's recommended, and you can watch to see how well it works. Sometimes it works even better. Other times you realize, oh, too close, I'm just going to dig that one up and move it. But another thing nice about having it right out the back door is that because our coffee grounds are all organic, I walk out the door in the morning and dump the coffee grounds into the bed, and then every once in a while I have this pile in the corner and I put them in a scoop and I put them all around the other plants because it's a good source of nitrogen. Spent coffee grounds are not acidic. People who put their coffee grounds on something hoping to make it acidic, it doesn't actually work. And also I save my eggshells and whatever I don't give back to my chickens, I crush up. And talking about houseplants, crushed eggshells and dried coffee grounds, put them in the blender when they're dry, and top all of your houseplants with it. I had my Christmas cactus bloom 3 times last winter, and it's bloomed twice this winter. So it's pretty amazing, just a couple of little things, inexpensive, basically costing you nothing, because it was just going to go in the compost anyways. So watering is a thing with raised beds, because I'm a gardener that I might water my regular garden maybe once every 2 weeks, but if a plant does not live in circumstances that it's growing in, I'm not going to spend every single day watering it. So I'm still trying to figure out the whole watering system with raised beds, because they do dry out. Oh, he does, yeah. He didn't tell me he has something to add to it, but.
What I did is I did a little research on this technique, and after everything starts to break down on these beds, they actually retain water better. Because what happens is in the first few years you're using them, it's so porous underneath that the water just goes down really quickly. But as everything starts to break down and you have a good humus underneath, it holds water a lot better actually. And that's what I've been, so we're still waiting to get to that point. But I think this year it's going to be better. So, are you done? So, I guess I don't have anything else to add at this point, unless you have any questions for us. Pardon me? Oh, I do want to get to, first of all, I had one with the trellis on it. There. If you can you see that this is the cattle panels that Bob was talking about. I didn't do a real scientific design with this one. I had one piece that was longer than the other, so the one went straight up and the other one went like this. But she wanted an arch, and that was the closest thing I could come up with for an arch. And she used that for the cucumbers. Is that what it was? Yeah. And then there's another slide of our son's garden. Do you have that on there? Okay, this is this is our oldest son, Derek. He lives in Thunder Bay, Ontario. And they didn't want to mow their front yard. So they put their beds, it's a raised bed, but it's only made with 2x8s. So it's basically just a little off the ground, and it's not a problem for them to bend over yet. So, but it really, they do very well with it. And I don't remember how they soiled them. Did they use compost first? It was a combination of compost and dirt. And then they also have the one in the foreground here, that's right next to the house. And that was an old flower bed that they turned into a garden. Did you want to say anything else about them?
Yeah, our daughter-in-law and I pulled all the bushes out that were in front of the house, and she kept a few perennials in there. Closest to the house, what works best is either some spinach or herbs. And they have 7 beds now in front, and this is basically their best southern exposure also. So the backyard is a lot of pines. And it is amazing how much food they get out of there, especially for the climate they live in. And they do use, I don't remember if it's, he bends, is it PVC or some type of?
Are you talking about for the sun?
Yeah, so they do have a covering that they put over their beds if they want to extend the seasons on either side, or if they're protecting from bugs, then you can use like an agro. It's a real fine material that the sun and moisture can go through. But they've figured out a lot of different tips to garden in a very cold place. So, or short growing season.
I think they're in a 3. I think that's their zone up there, 2 to 3. So they typically have snow on the ground until the end of April, at least. Sometimes into May. So, are there any other questions? Green treat. Green treat. Yep. If you have to buy wood to put in there, I would do cedar. Yep. The stuff that I used on this was so old that even if it was green treated, you couldn't tell it anymore. Because I think I had one porch post that was 100 years old, and I cut that up. It wasn't used anymore. I didn't tell you that, did I? So, but that's the biggest thing is green treat. Yeah. Our
daughter-in-law raises strawberries in her beds, and yeah, their first house they had these beds too, and it was phenomenal there. I think they had better sunshine there, but no, it works well. Actually, yeah, when we lived north of Howard Lake, I had a tiered raised bed for strawberries, and it was the best patch I've ever had.
She also, I'm going to repeat the question for the online audience. The first question was about what kind of wood not to use, and I had mentioned treated wood was not good to use in the beds. And then also, well, it's...
You wouldn't want to eat those chemicals.
Yeah, the old stuff had arsenic. They don't have that anymore, but it's not... It's just the green treat. When they treat that wood, it's wet usually. When you buy it at the lumberyard, it's wet. That stuff just drips off it. It's so wet, and I don't think you want that in your garden. You're asking me you could use it for a flower bed.
Yeah, if you don't eat your flowers.
Yeah, it's and then also she was asking, or Larry was asking about strawberries. What I do remember is we do have a hugelkultur on our farm. It's 75 feet long and 5 feet wide. And I know that because I dug it. And we dug it 3 feet deep. And then I laid 12, 15, 18-foot long logs in that hugelkultur. And I had the logs piled up about this high and then started covering it with compost. And I put about a good 1.5 feet of compost on the top and then 6 inches of black dirt on top of that. And so it started out about 5 feet tall. Now it's down to about 3 feet tall because it's down. But the second year of that, you had really good strawberries on that hugelkultur. The first year, when you do a hugelkultur, like I'm talking about, I think you said you recommended to put potatoes in there. That's kind of the first thing you do. And then after it starts to break down, then you start adding other stuff into it.
Yeah, that actually was the best way to grow potatoes that I've ever done. And the strawberries just, yeah, they went to town until the cows got out and walked over the hugelkultur. But I see that they're really coming back again. I probably put 8 or 10 strawberry plants in there, and a couple years ago I probably had a couple hundred.
Are there any more questions? Usually not, because I use it all.
And we have kids.
Bob and Sarah Lea. I think I'm trying to think. I was trying to think of some of the farmers that might have something like that, but I can't offhand. If you want to start it on your own, you can start it on a small scale with all your kitchen scraps and putting them in a regular compost bin. And are you in the city or in Cokato? I guess that if you look at the size and of what you want to do, I may be able to. I'd have to think about it a little bit and see if I could come up with somebody that would have good, compost or good manure that would work for it. So, but we'll talk afterwards maybe. Okay. Oh, you're asking if it's beneficial to rotate the crops in the raised beds? Yes. And that is one big benefit of having these individual beds like this, because you can rotate a lot easier in these beds.
If you noticed. I found this image on the internet actually, but I just thought this was one of the simplest designs that someone could do. And I think that's great if you have materials that you can repurpose. That's probably ideal. But we're switching to raised beds this year, and we're just using cedar decking boards, and those are really affordable. You can get like a 1 by 6 by 8 foot board is like $12 right now, or you can get even like a 1 by 5 by 6 foot board if you wanted to do like a 3 by 6 foot box, and those are just like $5 a piece. And it would take 3 boards to do like one 5-inch high frame, or if you wanted to go higher, that'd be another 3 boards. And then you can just buy the cedar corner posts to screw into in the corners. So it's such a simple design. Even I feel like I could do it. I really don't have carpentry skills, but it's like I could do that. It's very affordable. And then if you get a longer box, then you will want some sort of support in the middle so that the sides don't bow out with the pressure or the weight of the dirt or the soil. So I just wanted to share that because I just thought it was very simple and affordable. And you'll want to use like coated screws, or you can get stainless steel screws too. Those will last forever, but they're double the cost. But decking screws would work. So that's another option.
Actually, the screws I used when I put these together were the regular roofing screws for putting on metal roof. And that was pretty simple, and I have all kinds of old ones around, but they have a rubber grommet on it and washer on it built in, so it held everything together real nice. So, thank you.
Yeah, I just remembered, I've seen a couple people who use cedar fence boards with the little cutout on the top, and they just cut that off, because I think they can be $3 to $5 a piece for a 6 to 8 foot board, depending on where you get them. So that's an inexpensive option. And then if you really want to go inexpensive, you go to the grocery store and get the food grade vegetable boxes and fill them up with leaves and compost and dirt and plant in those. Now they do have some holes along this side, which I suppose you could put some fabric in there, but you don't have to. Yeah, these are waxed, and it's a food grade wax, and actually they can be fed to compost worms when you're all done with them. So, or even a plain old cardboard box, it's a good way to plant potatoes. It'll only last through the season, and if you really have a lot of rain, it might start to fall apart, but then I guess I would just take leaves or straw or something and top everything. So there are a lot of options if you don't have a lot of space, or if you don't feel like you have the money right now. Don't let obstacles or perceived obstacles stand in the way. There's always a creative way to solve most problems.
I found that I get on Facebook Marketplace quite a bit, and if you can find stuff for free on there, and they're giving stuff away. We found tin on there one time. We weren't there in time, so we didn't get it, but there's a lot of stuff you can find on that. Any more questions? It's good, yeah. Okay, you asked about horse manure, if it was good to use, and it is good to use. Yeah, but you need to make sure that they're on a good diet without having a lot of drugs in them. Yep. That whole protein to carbon ratio is really important when you're building compost, because if you start out with pure protein, and yeah, that's nitrogen. I'll give you a good example. I compost all of my chicken offal. Okay, last year I butchered 500 chickens, and so you have a lot of offal from your chickens, and that's pure protein. And so the ratio I use for that is basically 2 to 1. So I do 2 inches of chicken offal and then 4 inches of wood chips, and I layer that throughout the summer. And over the winter that breaks down. Now in the spring I'll go in and turn it with the loader and mix it all up, and it's completely composted. It's unbelievable how fast that composts. But you need to have that good carbon to protein mix. Jay. Yeah, it's well, south facing, yeah, but ours are out in the middle of the question was about if it matters where the sun is in regards to hugelkultur beds. Yeah, it is. They need to be in sun.
But I do have the option on the south side to plant things that really like sun, and on the north side, greens or things that don't want that harsh sun.
Okay, anybody else? Nope. Oh, because they're 2 foot deep, you're not going to have anything coming up from out down there. Yeah, any weeds you have is going to come from the compost you put in on the top. Yeah. Anybody else? Well, thank you.